8 months ago, I faced one of the most heartbreaking experiences of my life. I suffered a miscarriage. When my husband, Aaron, and I first found out we were expecting, it felt like the world had suddenly become brighter, filled with endless possibilities. We were overjoyed, already dreaming about the future we would build with our child. Every conversation revolved around the baby, what they might look like, their personality, and what kind of parents we would become. Aaron was incredibly supportive, and knowing we were embarking on this journey together made it all the more special. We wasted no time preparing. Our spare room quickly transformed into a nursery. We carefully selected the paint color, discussed furniture choices, and I devoured every book I could find about pregnancy and newborn care. Every little step brought us closer to the reality of parenthood, and our excitement grew with each passing day. But in the blink of an eye, everything fell apart. One night, I woke up with an overwhelming sense of unease. My body felt wrong, though I couldn't immediately explain why. Then, as I rushed to the bathroom, my heart hammering in my chest, I saw it, the blood. A chilling dread took over me, and in that instant, I knew something was terribly, irreversibly wrong. My sobs must have woken Aaron because he was by my side in seconds, his face full of panic and confusion. As soon as he realized what was happening, he didn't hesitate. He scooped me up and rushed me to the hospital. That drive felt endless. Every second stretched painfully, my mind racing with desperate prayers that somehow, our baby would be okay. But when we finally arrived and the doctors examined me, I could see the answer in their faces before they even spoke. Then, the words I had feared most shattered my world. I had lost the baby. It felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. The grief hit like a crushing wave, an unbearable weight pressing down on me. I couldn't comprehend it. I didn't want to. How could something we had loved so deeply be gone just like that? In the days that followed, I barely functioned. While Aaron remained strong for both of us, I completely fell apart. I couldn't eat, sleep, or even speak. It was as if the world had lost all color, and I was drowning in sorrow I didn't know how to escape. Though I had a job, I had to take 2 weeks off, 2 weeks where all I did was cry, unable to find a way out of the grief. I stayed in bed, barely moving, barely existing. Each morning, for a fleeting second, I would wake up and forget. And then reality would slam into me like a brutal force. I had lost our baby. And that pain was something I wouldn't wish on anyone. During that time, my family truly came together to support me in a way that I will always be grateful for. My parents and my sister checked in on me constantly. Every single day, someone would call, send a text, or drop by just to be with me, even though I barely had the energy to hold a conversation. My cousins and extended family also visited, bringing food and fresh fruit, hoping to nourish me in ways I couldn't do for myself. But no matter how much love and care surrounded me, I felt emotionally detached, completely numb. No one could say or do anything that would take away the immense sadness weighing on my heart. Through it all, my husband was my rock. Aaron took care of me when I had no strength left to take care of myself. He never pressured me to talk or pretend that everything was fine. Instead, he simply stayed by my side, patiently supporting me however he could. He brought me food, even when I could barely eat. He sat with me in silence when words felt too difficult. If it hadn't been for him, I don't know how I would have gotten through those first few weeks. He reassured me, time and time again, that we wouldn't give up, that when I was ready, we could try again. His unwavering faith in our future, his quiet optimism, was the only thing that kept me from completely falling apart. Little by little, I started to heal. It wasn't immediate, and it wasn't easy. Eventually, I made the decision to go back to work, not because I felt ready, but because I needed something to keep my mind occupied. Having a routine helped pull me out of the endless cycle of grief, but the pain never fully went away. In the quiet moments, when there was nothing to distract me, it would all come rushing back. That's when I realized I needed more than just distraction, I needed connection. So, I joined a few online support groups for people who had experienced miscarriages. At first, I wasn't sure if it would actually help, but as I read through the stories of others, I realized just how many people had been through the same kind of loss. Knowing that I wasn't alone, that my emotions were valid, and that others had found a way to survive this unbearable pain brought me comfort. Slowly, I started opening up about my own experience. And in sharing my story, I began to understand my grief in a way I hadn't before. Even now, I'm still mourning. I don't think that part will ever fully go away. But I've reached a place where I no longer blame myself, something that took an incredible amount of emotional work. There were so many times when I wondered if it was my fault if I had done something wrong. But I've come to accept that some things are simply beyond our control. I've embraced the mindset of what's meant to be will be, and somehow, that belief has given me peace. It has taken a long time and a lot of effort to reach this point, and I'm truly proud of how far I've come. But recently, something happened that shook me to my core, threatening to unravel all the healing I've fought so hard for. Last week, my sister's baby shower took place. To give some context, Maggie found out she was pregnant about 2 months ago. She announced the news to our family almost immediately, and everyone was thrilled for her. But strangely, I wasn't told directly by her. I found out through one of our cousins. It caught me off guard, not because I wasn't happy for her, but because Maggie and I had always been close. She had been a pillar of support for me during my miscarriage, comforting me when I needed it most. So when I realized she hadn't reached out to tell me herself, I couldn't help but feel surprised and, if I'm honest, a little hurt. When I finally talked to Maggie about it, I made sure to keep my emotions in check. I didn't want to make her feel guilty, but I also needed to understand why she hadn't come to me directly. She explained that she had kept the news from me because she didn't want to upset me. Knowing that I was still grieving, she was afraid that announcing her pregnancy might deepen my pain. I could tell that she hadn't meant to hurt me. It was never about shutting me out, but rather her way of protecting my feelings. I reassured her that no matter what I was going through, I would always be happy for her. I told her that she should never feel like she couldn't share her joy with me just because I was still healing from my loss. Despite my sadness, I still wanted to be a part of her journey. I promised her that I would love her baby just as much as I always would have, and that nothing about my grief changed that. More than anything, I wanted her to know that I was still her sister, still her biggest supporter, and that I wanted to be there for her. She seemed relieved after our conversation, grateful for my understanding. She even promised to keep me updated from then on, which felt like a positive step forward in our relationship. Over the past few weeks, I've made an effort to be there for Maggie in any way I can, especially since she's navigating this pregnancy mostly on her own. You see, she's currently in the middle of a divorce from her husband, Tyler. The news of their separation came as a shock to our entire family, including me. I had always thought Tyler was a genuinely good guy. Over the years, we had even grown close as friends. He seemed devoted to Maggie, always treating her with love and respect. From the outside, their marriage appeared happy and strong, which is why it was so surprising when Maggie suddenly announced that they were splitting up. She was vague about the details, only saying that they were divorcing due to irreconcilable differences. Whenever anyone asked for more information, she avoided elaborating, simply stating that Tyler couldn't handle the marriage anymore. It felt like there was a missing piece to the story, something she wasn't telling us, but I didn't want to push her for answers she wasn't ready to give. All I knew was that she needed support, and I was determined to be there for her. I've even accompanied her to a few of her ultrasound appointments and doctor visits, just to make sure she doesn't have to go through everything alone. Despite their ongoing divorce, Maggie and Tyler have managed to keep things civil, which is probably why she decided to host her baby shower at Tyler's new house. He had recently moved into a place with a spacious backyard, and Maggie thought it would be the perfect setting for everyone to gather, relax, and celebrate. A few days before the baby shower, Maggie invited me, our mom, and some of our cousins out for lunch to help her with the planning. We were excited to be involved, as family events like these are something we've always coordinated together, and this celebration felt especially meaningful. As we sat down, my cousins greeted me warmly, offering words of comfort about my miscarriage. Even though months had passed, they understood that grief doesn't simply disappear, especially when it comes to something as painful and personal as losing a baby. There was an unspoken understanding between us, a shared recognition of the emotional weight I still carried. Some of them even told me how brave and selfless they thought I was for standing by Maggie despite my own heartbreak. As women, they knew how difficult it must have been for me, and their empathy meant more than words could express. As we talked over lunch, I noticed a shift in Maggie's demeanor. She rolled her eyes and, in a firm voice, told everyone to stop bringing up such heavy topics. She insisted that it was time for all of us to move on from my incident. Her words stung. It wasn't as if I enjoyed talking about it either, but her reaction felt unexpectedly harsh. Still, I assumed she was just stressed about the baby shower and wanted to keep the focus on the celebration. Later that day, as I dropped her off at her house, Maggie made an offhand joke that caught me completely off guard. She laughed and said I always managed to steal the spotlight, ever since my miscarriage. Then, half seriously, she asked if I planned on doing the same thing at her baby shower. I was stunned. I asked her to clarify what she meant by stealing her spotlight. That's when she admitted that ever since my miscarriage, people had been more focused on me than on her, making her feel overlooked. She didn't want that happening at her baby shower. Her words hit me hard. The last thing I ever wanted was to take away from her happiness. I immediately apologized, reassuring her that no one intended to make her feel less important. I promised I would do my best to ensure that my loss wouldn't be a topic of discussion at her shower. I wanted her day to be special, and I never meant for my grief to overshadow her joy. Maggie didn't say much in response. She just shook her head slightly, as if she wasn't convinced. The conversation ended awkwardly, leaving me feeling uneasy. I understood that she wanted to feel fully supported, especially with everything she was going through with her divorce. But I hadn't realized my loss had made her feel so sidelined. The baby shower was 3 days ago, and I did everything in my power to keep the focus on Maggie and her baby. I avoided drawing attention to myself, determined to make sure this day was about her. But despite my best efforts, people still approached me throughout the event, offering warm hugs and gentle pats on the back. I knew they meant well. Yet, each time someone acknowledged me, I could feel Maggie watching. She didn't say anything, but her growing irritation was obvious. I hated that no matter what I did, I couldn't seem to erase the invisible tension between us. I just wanted to celebrate my sister, to be happy for her, and enjoy the day without worrying about whether I was upsetting her. During the event, I also saw Tyler for the first time in what felt like forever. When I greeted him with a hug, he seemed genuinely happy to see me. Despite everything that had happened between him and Maggie, it felt like our friendship was still intact. To my surprise, he even apologized for not being there for me after my miscarriage. He acknowledged how difficult the past few months must have been for me. I waved it off, understanding that he and Maggie had been dealing with their own struggles. But as I looked at him, I noticed something different. He had lost weight, and there was a heaviness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. His usual vibrance was gone, replaced by something quieter, something sad. It made me wonder how he was truly coping with the divorce. Maggie never went into detail about their breakup, and Tyler didn't offer any explanations either. But it was clear that he wasn't okay. Meanwhile, my husband Aaron had also come to the shower. He, Tyler, and the other men stayed busy grilling food and chatting in the background, letting the women take the lead in celebrating Maggie's big day. For a while, everything seemed fine. But little did I know, the worst was yet to come. At the baby shower, everyone came bearing thoughtful gifts for Maggie and her soon-to-arrive little one. The atmosphere was warm and joyful as each guest presented their tokens of love and excitement. One of my cousins had lovingly crocheted a baby blanket. My father gifted Maggie a beautiful baby rocker, and my mother went all out, surprising her with a brand new stroller, something that thrilled Maggie. For my gift, I chose something deeply personal. Along with a couple of parenting books that had helped me during my own pregnancy, I gave her a baby shawl that held immense significance for me. This shawl was the very first thing I had bought when I learned I was expecting. I still remember the moment vividly. I had been on a trip to Istanbul when I spotted it, a delicate, intricately woven piece that instantly captured my heart. I bought it with so much joy, already picturing myself wrapping my baby in its soft embrace. But after I lost the baby, the shawl became a bittersweet reminder, tied to both my happiest anticipation and my deepest heartbreak. For the longest time, I couldn't bring myself to part with it. Yet, I also didn't want it to sit untouched, weighed down by sorrow. Instead, I wanted it to have a purpose, to be a part of something beautiful. So, I decided to pass it on to Maggie, hoping her baby could make good use of it. To me, it wasn't just a piece of fabric. It was a symbol of love, hope, and healing. I truly believed it would bring comfort to both of us. But the moment Maggie unwrapped the shawl, everything changed. She froze, her expression shifting from surprise to something much darker, discomfort. then outright anger. She held the shawl as if it were something tainted, her grip tightening before she looked up at me with frustration in her eyes. Then, in front of everyone, she asked why I would bring that to her baby shower. I was confused, caught completely off guard. Nervously, I tried to explain, telling her that it was special to me and that I wanted her baby to have it, that I thought it would be a meaningful, personal gift. Around us, guests admired the shawl's beauty, murmuring about how lovely it was. But Maggie didn't seem to care. Instead, her face grew even more tense, and then, before I could fully process what was happening, she accused me of trying to curse her baby. The room fell silent. I blinked in disbelief, struggling to understand what she meant. Her words cut like a blade, sharp and sudden. I tried to ask her what she was talking about, but before she could answer, my mother jumped in. She turned to me and, with a disapproving look, said it was inappropriate to give Maggie something that was originally meant for my dead baby. She explained that passing down an item connected to a loss wasn't right, that it carried bad energy and wasn't something fit for a new life. Hearing her say that crushed me. That had never even crossed my mind. I had only wanted to offer something filled with love, something that could find new joy instead of being tied to grief. But in that moment, I realized that wasn't how they saw it at all. I swallowed my emotions, quietly took the shawl back, and apologized. I didn't want to cause a scene. I didn't want to ruin Maggie's day. But inside, I was breaking apart. But Maggie wasn't done. Still visibly upset, she doubled down, telling me that just because I had lost my baby didn't mean I could hand down those things to hers. Her baby deserved better than that. Her words hit like a gut punch. I felt my chest tighten, my throat burn. I was on the verge of tears, trying to hold myself together in front of everyone. That's when Aaron stepped in. In a calm but firm voice, he cut through the tension, addressing Maggie directly. He made it clear that I had never intended to hurt or upset her, that the shawl was my way of finding healing, while also showing how much I cared for her and her child. Then, he pointed out something everyone else seemed to overlook. If Maggie had a problem with my gift, she could have spoken to me privately. There was no reason to humiliate me in front of our entire family and friends.